Hey y'all, Stephanie here with Minimalist Mom Life. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do just a little story time with you to give you a little background about kind of my journey with being debt free. And so since my channel is a lot about minimalism, obviously some motherhood stuff, and then kind of debt free living on a budget, I thought it would be good to give you guys a little history kind of in how we got to where we are. So I have shared with you before that we are on baby step 6. If you are familiar with Dave Ramsey's plan, baby step 6 is where you have a fully funded emergency fund, you're saving 15% for retirement, kids college, and then you're trying to pay off your home as quickly as possible, or just before either a 30 or 15 year, depending on your mortgage, just paying it off soon. So that is where we are. And I've shared that we've never really had debt, but I've not really shared how that happened. And I want to be open and encouraging with you guys about how that happened. So hopefully this isn't too jumbled and I can get through this pretty clearly. So I will start with when I was 18 and I was getting ready to go to college. I'm already having to back up a little bit. Okay, so I had just turned 18. I was still a senior in high school, and I was working at Abercrombie. Abercrombie was my first job. If y'all remember, Abercrombie's from the mall. That was my first job, and I was making like minimum wage. And I remember my dad telling me that I should look into getting a job like at a restaurant, like being a waitress or something, because I could probably make way more money than I was making minimum wage working at Abercrombie. And so I took my dad's advice, and I got a job at Outback Steakhouse, which still happens to be like my favorite place to eat. So I got a job there, and I was making really good money. I like people, and I like waiting on people, and the tips came in. It was great. So I have 3 older siblings, and I had watched all of them go off to college, and I was very familiar that college costs a lot of money. My parents were not in a situation where they were paying for their kids to go to college. They wanted us to go to college. They were supportive. I have wonderful parents. But financially, they were not like just writing the check for us to go off to college. So I knew that either I was going to have to pay for it, or there were going to be student loans, scholarships, all of that. I was pretty familiar with that. And I really appreciate that my parents were so open about that with me, so I didn't go into it blindly. I knew, okay, there's a bill and it has to be paid. And my dad always encouraged us to live within our means and to understand to not spend money before we had it and have all of that. So I was working a lot, and I enjoyed working, so I'd pick up extra shifts, and I would do the closing shift and all sorts of stuff like that just to make money. And so as I was coming in, obviously I didn't have bills or anything, I'm like a senior in high school. And my parents, the way they did it growing up is my parents gave me my first car. It was a hand-me-down. It was my mom's old car. But so I had nothing to pay for a car. My parents paid for my car insurance, and they paid for my cell phone. And they were going to continue that all of college. So I had to pay for my gas, and I was going to have to pay for college, but those 2 things I didn't have to pay for. So during that time, I saved up a lot of money, and then I also picked a very, very affordable college to go to. I went to a state school. It was 6 hours away from where my parents lived. I knew that I loved it. It was small, but not tiny. Just a really great school, great fit for me, and most of all, it was very, very, very affordable, and they also had lots of scholarship options. Because, probably same for a lot of you, if you've been to college, or if you're watching this video because you're about to go to college and you're wanting to do it debt-free, there are a lot of us that our parents make too much money in order for us to qualify for any grants. So the government's not going to help with school because our parents make too much money for that, but that doesn't mean they make enough to really send us to school, or they're just not going to because they have other financial commitments, which was the case with my parents. So, all that to say, picking a very affordable school was monumental in the rest of this story of us still being debt-free. Because I picked an affordable school, I was able to go to school without ever having any debt. And that set us up for everything else. And Jason has a kind of similar story to that. But that's his story, so I'm just going to tell you mine for now. So I saved up my first bill for college, living on campus with the cheapest meal plan there was. And I picked I don't know if it's true for all schools, but my college had like different prices for depending on where you were living, like what dorm. Picked an affordable one, and so my bill was $5,000 for my first semester of college, and I was able to pay that in cash just from working as a waitress. And I knew even going in my first semester of college that I wanted to come out of college without any debt. I knew I did not want debt. I didn't have this, long set out plan for that. That was my goal, was I was not going to go into debt. So I would have to find scholarships and stuff like that. So I joined a sorority. I'm a Delta Theta, and I was in extracurricular activities. I always took a full course of hours, at least 12, most of the time 15. At least one semester I took 18 hours of college, but I worked. So I would work the semester that I was in to be able to try and pay for the next semester. I applied for lots of scholarships. I would encourage you, apply for the obscure scholarships, network just like you would if you're like a salesperson. Get to know people in the community of where your college is. Get to know people, like get to know your dean. Let them know that you're looking for scholarships. Get to know all of the little ins and outs of the people that work in the school that are going to know people in the community that may have specific scholarships. I was a sociology major with a minor in social work, but for 2 years I got a scholarship for young businesswomen. Okay, I was not ever going to be a young businesswoman, but I happened to be like the only girl that ever applied to that scholarship. And then besides writing my little thing about what I wanted to do with my life, and I was very honest, it had nothing to do with business, it had to do with social work, I would get the scholarship, and then I would go to like this little luncheon that they put on once a semester, because they met like I think once a month, but I only went to one the whole semester, and I would thank them for the scholarship. I got another really good scholarship 2 times, I believe, and that covered almost everything for me, because of somebody I knew, knowing somebody that was even from a different state, the scholarship was, but it would apply in Texas. It was fine, and I don't think many people applied, and so I was picked. So I applied for tons of scholarships. I did look for grants, but again, because of my parents' income, I don't think I ever got a single grant. I never accepted a single student loan. Make sure even when you're meeting with your financial aid office that they know you do not want loans. You do not want loans. Loans are not doing you a favor. You don't want a student loan. So I did that. I became an RA, which is a resident assistant in the dorms, just 1 semester in. And I remember when I applied to do that, I knew it would, I think it gave us half off room and board, plus paid us like $600 or $700 a month. I don't remember all the details, but it was something like that. And I remember when I was applying, it said you had to have lived in the dorm for a year. And I had only lived in the dorm for a semester at that point, but they still ended up giving me the position, which gave me, I was an RA for 1.5 years, including a summer while I was taking summer school. And I was taking summer school, side note, from a community college online, because that was even cheaper than the university I was at. But I was still able to be there and be an RA, make that money, live there, and get my schooling online for a little bit cheaper. So apply, whether you think you're qualified or not, whether it says you have to have sophomore credit hours and you have freshman credit hours, like apply, be nice, follow up with people on scholarships, follow up with people on jobs, and make it work. So I did that. I worked 2 jobs almost all of college. So I was an RA, and then I had a job at an insurance office from like 1 to 5 every day. And basically it was just 2 really sweet old people in the community, a son and his father. And I would do my homework, and I would answer the phone, and I would just kind of man the desk, and it was perfect. And I was an RA at that time as well. I was a waitress for quite a while in college after I was no longer an RA, because I had taken a position as student body vice president, and you couldn't get paid by the school twice, so I had to step down from being an RA, and so then I went and got a job on the weekends at a restaurant. So I made it work. I worked really hard through college, at least 2 jobs. I'm doing odd jobs sometimes as well. I don't remember if it was for 1 semester or 2. In between, I would always get my classes in the morning, and then I'd have my afternoon insurance job. And in between that switchover, there was an old lady that I would go in and I would check on her, and I would make her lunch or bring her lunch, and I would go get her groceries every Friday. And those were all the tasks she needed. She just needed somebody to kind of check in on her, bring her food. I didn't do any cleaning. I didn't do any like CNA work or anything like that. She just needed that and a friendly face. And I got paid really well to do that as well. So my encouragement, if you're watching this video because you're about to go to college or you're in college for being debt free, is be creative with what you can do. Don't just take the job that the school offers, paying minimum wage, working for the dean, 20 hours a week. Those are fine for homework and stuff, but if you're doing that, you're going to have to get something else as well that's going to make more money. If you can be friendly and you can be nice, being a waitress makes a lot of money, especially in college towns and stuff. So that was always a good option for me. But make sure you're working Make sure you're applying for tons and tons and tons of scholarships and following up on those, trying to get them again if you've received them once because you were a good recipient. Be organized with that kind of stuff for sure. And that honestly is what got me through college. And again, I didn't go to a super expensive college, so I wasn't having to come up with $40,000 every year. And once it was $5,000 that first semester, that was room, board, books, tuition, everything. By the second semester, it was already a little bit lower than that because then my room and board had knocked down half off because I was an RA. So you can do it. And try and do it because it'll set you up for the rest of your life so much easier if you can get through college and get that 4-year degree without having to have debt to carry on for the rest of your life. So I did that. I graduated in 3.5 years. And that wasn't on purpose, actually. It was just because I was taking so many classes during the summer because I would take them online because it was through a community college because it was so much cheaper than even my university. It kind of added up to where it just worked where I could graduate a semester early. So I graduated college and I had money in the bank, a couple $1,000s saved for like furniture and stuff for my first big girl apartment with my big girl job. I went to Uganda on a mission trip right after I graduated in December. Christmas happened. I went to Africa. I'd already been offered a job with CPS, Child Protective Services, but the state that I was in had like a hiring freeze, so there were complications with when I could actually start. But I had money in the bank. I graduated college not in debt, but actually having money saved. And I didn't even know totally at the time that was very odd. I did start listening to Dave Ramsey about my sophomore year in college, and that was a huge encouragement to me on my don't go into debt journey. So I would say that's another thing, that if you're wanting to go to college debt-free, surround yourself with like-minded people. And if they're not in your sorority or they're not in your group of friends, or they're not on your dorm, and everybody's making dumb money decisions, then like listen to them. Find a podcast, find Dave Ramsey, somebody that you can talk to that is going to give you, good sound financial advice for sure. Or find YouTube people that you want to watch. Use your resources to better your life, not just then, but looking at the long road ahead. I think it was like the commencement speaker at my college graduation that kept using the phrase, like, you begin with the end in mind. And that is so true on any journey, but I think especially college, if you're looking about going debt-free, begin with the end in mind. So if you can get through college with your degree and no debt, what is that going to look like? And honestly, I didn't even know how much that was going to benefit me. I just knew I wanted to avoid the stress of debt, and I just didn't want to owe anybody money. I just wanted to be able to pay for college. So that worked out. So I graduated college. I was driving. I graduated college in December of 2010, and I was driving like a 2001 Nissan Altima, I think, something like that. And it was a great car. It was a car that my parents had given me as a hand-me-down when I turned 16. It had been my mom's to drive. And I loved it, but my dad felt like with my new position for CPS in Texas, you drive your own car, I should have a more reliable car. So my father offered me my mom's 2009, so this is 2010, so 2009 Toyota Corolla, and he said he wasn't going to completely give it to me. I was going to have to pay for some of it, but he would give it to me for like $5,000, which obviously is like way less than he would actually pay for it. And that was kind of a graduation gift to me, and then also he felt better knowing that I was in a safe car, and I felt like that was probably a good move. He didn't put it on me. I didn't have to accept that, but I did. I took my dad's advice and thought, okay, like maybe I do need a better car, and obviously I'm never going to get a better deal than getting, a car that's a year old for only $5,000, and it's a Toyota, so it's going to be great. So I did that, but then that meant that I also owed $5,000 because I had not saved $5,000. I had a couple $1,000s, but not that much. But as soon as I started working for CPS, I paid off that car within just a few months, like very, very quickly. And that is really the only debt that I have ever continued to have. So that is how I got to where we are now. So then, well, not exactly. So I paid that off. I was single. I was working for CPS. I was, just having fun, living life. Jason and I started dating. Jason had no debt. We got married. We committed to not having debt. I brought money into the marriage too, savings, and as did he, because we had both been pretty good with our money. And I already had like my 3 to 6 month emergency fund set aside. And so then when we got married, we knew we were going to have kids, or thought we'd have kids pretty soon. So we committed to whatever I made at my job we got married. He was already in South Carolina. I moved to be there with him. He was a youth pastor at a church. And I got to work for CPS there. And we said, okay, whatever I make there after we've like given from it, we're just going to, like tithes and given, we're just going to save it completely. Knowing that when we do have children, I'm going to be coming home. And that way we already have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. But let's go ahead and bulk up some other savings accounts, like have, you know, a good chunk of money set aside for a car, another car one day, stuff like that. So kind of just setting ourselves up to be in a better spot. So that was our plan, and I actually got pregnant with Martin like a month and a half after I started work at CPS, something like that. So not very long. But we did that, and then I stopped work for CPS just a few weeks before I had Martin, and I have not gone back to work since. And that is really what has set us up for where we are now. So if you are about to go to college, the decisions you make as an 18-year-old girl are going to affect you as a now 28-year-old girl. 10 years later, I'm thankful that my dad gave me the advice to go get a job that would make more money, because there's no way I could have paid for college or even hardly any of it if I had just stayed working at Abercrombie. That was not, while it was fun and I love the clothes, it was not going to make me money to really be able to set aside for college. And if my dad had not encouraged me to work and been very upfront with me at the cost of college, things could have gone very differently. So if you're a parent watching this, I know I'm a mom now, but my kids are all very far from college. They're going to understand money. They're going to understand the cost of things. And they're also going to understand that they can get out there and get a job and hustle and work. And you can make $400 in a weekend being a waitress if you're good at it. And you can be good at it if you're nice. That's really all it takes, a little bit of multitasking. So my encouragement to you guys is think indeed with the end in mind and act with the end in mind. I mean, I think that's true not only for finances, but our parenting, the way we live, everything. What is the end goal? What is going to be our why? What are we trying to get to? And what is that going to look like? So we're willing to make the sacrifices and work hard now. And I loved every bit of college. I loved those 3.5 years. I mean, I did mention that I worked quite a few jobs, but it was fun. College was fun. I was very social. Again, I was in a sorority, lots of extracurricular activities. I had great grades. And that's not to brag and say like, oh, I did it all or something, because I definitely didn't. And I was definitely very tired. But you can make sacrifices for what you later want in life, and you can still enjoy that season. I think sometimes we think like working hard, we paint it to be much worse than it is. I think God made us and designed us to work. That's not a bad thing, and we can do it, and we can be successful and get the things that we want through doing that oftentimes. So that is kind of how we got exactly to where we are now. So now I'm a stay-at-home mom. We are dependent on Jason's income and the Lord's grace, and we have our different savings accounts and stuff that I've talked to you guys about. But I didn't want, if you're watching those videos, you to think, oh, Stephanie just got through college debt-free or whatever, because her parents just wrote this wonderful, beautiful check for her every semester, and everything was like easy and coasting. Most people that are debt-free are either they had debt and they had to work really hard to pay off that debt, or they avoided that debt by working really, really hard. And that is my case. So yes, I don't have some amazing story of working baby step 2 where I had snowballs of debts and I did all this stuff. I did pay off, that one debt of my $5,000 for my car in just a few months. But other than that, it was the hard decisions along the way to avoid debt that got me to where I am. So either way, you can be debt-free. If you have debt, you can definitely get out, and you can definitely work hard, and by God's grace, stay away from debt. And so that's my encouragement to you guys. If you have any questions about anything that I've mentioned in this video, or any comments on how you are getting out of debt or how you avoided debt in college or anything else, leave them in the comments down below. I'd love to talk to you guys, and I'll see you in my next video.